Hey guys, today we're in the kitchen. We are gonna make some meatballs. I think Rob's had it on his mind for a minute, so he decided to do that today. And we got baby Jovi with us. Please take a minute to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and follow along. Thanks for watching.
So the meatballs we're gonna make today are gonna utilize a lot of ingredients that we grow here on the homestead, but also some stuff we had in the fridge. We're going to make a gluten-free meatball, which we're going to use oat flour or oats instead of flour as a binder. We're going to use some of our farm fresh eggs. We have some raw milk. We are going to use some parmesan, grass-fed beef, and some of our pork. So we're going to make a pork beef meatball, Italian style meatball. We're going to bake them off. This is a good meal to have. We're going to have some right now for a meal, but this is also a good meal prep because you can bake the meatballs and then keep them in the freezer and pull them out as you need for meals. So let's get started. So we're using, because we're gonna do, you could do a straight up beef meatball. We're gonna use beef and pork 50-50. So I've got a pound of each. And to that 2 pounds of meat, I'm gonna add 4 eggs, a half a cup of milk, a cup of oats. I've seen a lot of recipes where they just use the straight up oats, but we're gonna blend them real quick and make an oat flour. And we'll use some Parmesan cheese, some salt, pepper, and some a little bit maybe Italian seasoning. So first things first, get our 4 eggs cracked here, and we're gonna add in our milk and whisk that up. And then we're gonna blend the oat flour and let that absorb some of that liquid first. Because I like to save on dishes, I'm going to use my measuring cup to measure my oats first before I measure my wet ingredients, because that way I know my oats won't stick to the measuring cup.
And you're using one that you can use to measure everything. You could have just used a 1 cup.
I asked her for a 1 cup, and then I said, wait a minute, give me a half cup, because I know I can save on a dish. So you'd whisk these together. I hate washing a whisk, so I use a fork. I'm just going to get our 4 eggs and our milk whisked up. I've already got my cup of oats. We decide to use the food processor or the blender. We're just going to use the blender. I feel like it's less dishes. So this is a really nice high protein, gluten-free, low carb. It's gonna have some good fat in it. This is a really good meal prep. Those are some things that you consider important in your diet. So we just put those dry oats into the egg milk mixture, which is kind of making our binder. And we're gonna just let that rest for like 5 minutes and let the oats absorb some of that liquid before we add our meat and the rest of our seasonings in. You're just trying to get the oat flour wet. Half a cup of finely chopped onion. Would you rather use onion powder? I can. And a tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to go ahead and crush some of our garlic into this egg milk mixture. This recipe calls for garlic and onion. We're going to use some of our garlic, but Lizzie doesn't like cooked onion, so I'm going to substitute that with onion powder. And this calls for a half a cup of chopped onion, so instead we're going to use like 2 teaspoons of onion powder. Jovi, do you like onion? So this is another ingredient we grew here on the farm, is our fresh garlic. Onion, however, we don't ever really have much luck with. That's something that we use a lot, but we need to up our onion growing game. So we got some garlic mixed in there. And this is really already starting to thicken up. The oats are soaking up a lot of that liquid. When I looked up a conversion of fresh onion to onion powder, it says 3 tablespoons of fresh onion equals 1 teaspoon of onion powder. So I'm going to just guesstimate that a couple teaspoons be adequate here. And mix that in. I feel like mixing all of these seasonings into your wet mixture before adding in the meat is good, because you're distributing the seasoning your salt, your pepper, and the onion and garlic pretty evenly before you then combine all the meat and the cheese together. Putting our salt and pepper in here. 2 pounds of meat, it calls for 2 teaspoons of salt. I always find that 1 teaspoon of salt per 1 pound of meat is about the right amount of salt. We do that with our breakfast sausage, Italian sausage. Anytime we're salting a meat, I think a good rule is 1 teaspoon of salt per pound of meat. So we've got 2 pounds of meat, we've got 2 teaspoons of salt, and then in our taste preference, it's always about the half that amount of pepper. So we've got 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of black pepper in here. And people have different tastes as far as salt, but I always feel like that's a good starting point, and then you can always salt later. So this can be a kind of a blank slate meatball, or you can go for an Italian style meatball, depending on what you want. We tend to use them more in an Italian style, but I don't want them overly Italian. You can use fresh basil, fresh parsley to your taste. We have Italian seasoning blend. I'm gonna put a teaspoon of that in there to add some flavor. Then when we add the Parmesan, it'll also enhance that Italian flavor. I don't know if this is getting me or not. Don't grate your fingers off. So we are looking for about 1 cup of fresh grated Parmesan. This is a raw milk Parmesan Reggiano. You could use that, or like a pecorino, or any type of sharp Italian cheese, or whatever cheese you like, but it's really going to add some flavor, and it's also going to help bind, and it's going to add some good fat. So, looks good to me. Okay, so now I've got all of my ingredients in here except for the beef and the pork. So I've got all this mixed really well, and I'm going to add the meat in there, mix it well by hand, and let it chill a little bit longer, let it rest, so that it binds real well before we form our meatballs. Oh, we can get a good. When you're doing this, you want to kind of gently mix and massage. You don't want to over mix this. If you over mix it too well, like you're kneading a dough, then you're going to end up with tough meatballs. So you're really just trying to incorporate everything evenly. And then once this is mixed, we'll put it in the fridge and let it rest like this for about 15 minutes before we go to form our meatballs. And we are just going to bake them off. So I'll run through some of the amounts real quick. We've got a pound of pork, a pound of beef, we've got 4 eggs, a half cup of milk, and 1 cup of oats, a tablespoon of fresh garlic, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and we put 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning in there. Oh, and 1 cup of Parmesan. So that's mixed pretty well. I don't want to overdo it. I can tell that it's all incorporated, looks pretty even, and there's no inconsistency to the mixture. Cheese is all mixed well, and we're going to put it in the fridge and let it rest.
Use a glove if you have one.
It's not necessary, but when I'm mixing meat like this, I find it just a little bit easier for cleanup. So your meatballs, after this has rested a little bit, or whatever size you like meatballs to be, a little bit sticky. Are those too big of meatballs for you?
Probably.
And we are just putting these out on some parchment paper, and we're going to bake them at 375 for probably about 15-20 minutes. If you had a ice cream scoop or a melon baller, you could do this. Now's when I need my gloves. Okay, these are a little bigger than I would like them to be, but this also came out a little more sticky than I'm used to working with. So we'll see how they turn out. I'm going to set it for 20 minutes. And then I'll check them with the thermometer. That's what I do.
At 375?
My meat blobs are actually looking just fine. They look really good. We're maybe 5-10 minutes away. They are turning into great, delicious smelling meat blobs. Are you gonna have a meatball? You look kind of like a meatball. All right. It's been exactly 20 minutes, and I temped some of these. They are definitely done. They look great. I'm gonna pull them out. So these are kind of like a blank slate. You can now put them in a marinara tomato sauce. You could do an Alfredo sauce. You could do like a stroganoff or like Swedish meatball type cream sauce. I'm starving right now, so I'm literally just going to shave some parmesan on them and give them a try without any sauce. Liz likes to, after, and I enjoy it too, but after the meatballs are already cooked, she likes to get a sear on them, which so you can add some fat, some butter, lard, or whatever, and get a nice sear, a crust on them. They're really good that way too, but they're ready to eat just like this. So you can also, now that we've done these up, this is clearly more than enough meatballs for Liz and the baby and I. So we can let them cool down and have some for leftovers or meal preps, but also probably we'll stick some of these in the freezer, and then you can just pull them out as you need it and add them to whatever sauce and heat them up that way. And it's just a nice hearty meal prep to have ready to go. Hot. Really good. Really flavorful, tender, moist. They're yummy. They're perfect. So this is a great gluten-free, high-protein, good fat meal that you can use with some of the stuff you grow around your own homestead. If you guys have any questions or any tips for us on any of this stuff, please leave a comment below. We're gonna eat, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.